We're shifting the conversation towards DNA testing this morning. So, we opened up the show and, most of our conversation this morning has been on paternity fraud.
Yes.
We opened up the show with very interesting statistics saying that 3 out of 10 Nigerian men are not biological fathers to their children, and obviously we debunked those statistics because those are just claims and not actually facts.
Yeah.
Right. So, at the roots of paternity test, paternity test and whatnot is actually a DNA confirmation that, when the DNA of the child matches the DNA of the father, then, then the father is sure that he's the biological father of said child. So we are going to be looking into DNA testing this morning. What is DNA testing? What is the purpose? What is the function, of DNA testing? And, I'm very glad that we'll actually be doing this with a medical doctor, a professional in the field. So when you hear DNA, what comes to mind?
So before now, when you watch a movie, that's the first time I got very accustomed to DNA.
Yeah.
The moment you hear it, what you are hearing it for is the fact that you want to know if the child is yours or not. So there used to be a show that I enjoyed. It's an American TV show where they actually check for paternity fraud and everything, where the father of that child will come on the show and say, the father. That show used to really interest me and all of that. But anyways, before we go on and on talking about that, we already have our guest that will be talking about DNA and paternity testing. Her name is Dr. Demowo Palang. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm fine.
All right. It's nice for you to join us this morning. All right, so let's jump into the conversation. What is DNA and paternity testing?
Okay. Basically, DNA is a short form for deoxyribonucleic acid. And then DNA is... Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Please go on.
Okay. DNA is actually the more like the unit of life. It carries instruction on the human being, or instruction about the living thing in general. By instruction, I mean the way you look, the way the body is made up, the way one grows, about aging. The whole instruction is carried on the DNA. Now, DNA testing, on the other hand, is a situation whereby people test, whereby the DNA of that person is tested. There are different reasons for DNA test. Paternity test is just one of the reasons for a DNA test. DNA is also to check ancestral origin, one's genetic makeup, one's disease condition. While paternity test is a form of DNA test whereby the paternity of an individual is being, checked out. Now that is different from DNA. It is just one segment of DNA. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so, I mean, a lot of people wouldn't even know, because most times when you talk about DNA, the next thing, especially DNA testing, the next thing people say, oh, okay, it's paternity testing. We've been mixing it all up. Now, it is very good that you've been able to clarify that DNA, paternity testing is just a branch or a segment of DNA. Now, let's talk about the primary function of paternity testing. Why do you think people actually go into this? Because, I mean, we were talking about paternity fraud, but in my research, I saw that there are other reasons why people actually go into paternity testing.
Well, basically, paternity fraud, as you said, is one of the reasons, especially that is what is trending currently.
Exactly.
The other reasons why people go into paternity testing is... there are sometimes women on their own can go, being that they are not sure of the father of the child. So the paternity testing can be done even before a child is born. Some other people, there are also legal issues where paternity testing is being done, like when it comes to will, sharing of property and all that. So sometimes people, request for paternity testing just to be sure that, okay, this child is actually, that of the child. And sometimes even children on their, after an IVF, you understand? Or so after an IVF, some people want to know the paternity of the child, because an IVF, sometimes they have sperm banks where people go and donate sperm, such that there are women who don't, want to get married and all that, and they want to have children. So they get sperm from those places, or men who can't, have that this thing. So sometimes after an IVF, people also want to do paternity testing just to have an idea of the source of, this sperm. So those are some of the few reasons why people do paternity testing in particular.
All right. So, Dr. Dimoro, so this morning we've been speaking about paternity fraud in Nigeria. And, one of the reasons, we highlighted two major reasons for paternity fraud in Nigeria. One being infidelity, as in adulterous, sexual recklessness among couples. And the other being, mistakes and mishaps that happen in hospitals, in clinics. All right. How prevalent are these mistakes that happened in Nigerian hospitals, and is it a big factor to, the rise in paternity fraud in Nigeria?
Well, based on my little experience, I would say it's actually much, because initially, while I was younger, I heard a figure, and I was hearing something like about 60% of first children are not for the father. And I argued, because for me, I was like, no, women don't do that. Women are more, women are milder or nicer, sort of. That has been my opinion. And so when I worked at the primary health center, whereby I noticed I had people who probably will come with STIs, and then by the time you're like, okay, let me counsel you together with your partner, you will hear things like, well, I'm 2 weeks pregnant, and actually it wasn't him, So I was like, wow, so these things happen. And I've also had people who called me, like, can an ultrasound scan help them detect the father of the child? Like, they met 2 people at the same time, and they don't know. And I'll be like, well, a scan can't actually tell you, except to do a DNA or paternity test. And they'll just be like, well, they'll just fix it on the person, the most ready person, sort of, like, whoever accepts, because they themselves were confused. At least I've had about 3 or 4 of such occurrences in my short period of practice. And then, and then there was also a lady I knew. I think I had such, she got married, gave birth before then, and later it came out. And her husband still took her back, like, just go and have the baby with your parents, and then, you can come back to my house. So with those, I was like, wow, this thing is kind of common anyway. It's commoner than I expected it to be, So and I had a close friend who had something similar also, and I was like, wow, she just told me in confidence, and I was like, well, just, try and do it again so that your mind will be clear. So I think it's very common, but however, I don't know what to say.
All right.
I think it's all
so Dr. Dimoro, just to interrupt you very quickly. So the hospitals, the hospitals and clinics in Nigeria have no role to play in, paternity fraud in Nigeria. That is what I'm getting from you this morning?
Okay, you mean have no
terms of mixing up. Okay, we have actually heard cases of mix-up in hospitals with babies. This morning we took we took a case study of, this is not in Nigeria, in Zimbabwe, of a nurse who for 12 years swapped 5,000 babies. So this mix-ups, the mix-ups that happen in the hospitals, it's not prevalent. Is that what I'm getting from you, ma'am?
No, it doesn't. Baby swap. Well, I wouldn't. In Nigeria, there are so many places called hospitals. I have worked in standard hospitals all along, and we are usually very, very sensitive to that. In fact, usually, immediately a baby is born, we put the baby on the mother. Do you understand? We don't move. We don't. It's not like we put the babies all in one place and then start picking up babies. No, it's usually very. It's quite organized. So I haven't seen a case of baby swap, actually.
Okay.
Even when a lot of babies are born, I've not seen that.
Okay. Okay, let's talk about DNA testing while you're still pregnant. You mentioned that earlier when we were talking about the what DNA testing is, what paternity testing is, and all of that. You said something about women can actually do that while they are still pregnant. I am not sure if a lot of people actually know that it's a very popular thing. So can you break it down a little bit? How does that go?
Yeah, well, usually the commonest one that is being done is that from the amniotic fluid, that's the fluid that surrounds the baby, with a form of guidance, that fluid can be taken out from the mother while pregnant. And then, of course, the father, because DNA testing or paternity testing, generally there must be consent on both parts. You understand me? So, and then the father. So now that fluid already contains the genetic makeup of that baby. So they can actually do the test. It's done even here in Nigeria, actually. So they do the DNA test, even the paternity test, even before the baby is born, using that fluid. So occasionally there are a few complications, but it's very rare. One can have a miscarriage. One can have some vaginal bleeding after the procedure, which will stop and all that. But the risks are not common, and it's usually done. It's actually possible to do it before the baby is born.
Okay, so you're telling me that there are actually risk factors when you do the paternity testing while you are pregnant, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So how does it go generally? I know that it is not cheap, because the way people are mentioning it on the internet, it looks like, oh, it's about 20,000. You can just go and do it, like malaria test or blood test and all of that. But how does it go generally? I know you've mentioned something on there being, there should be consent between the husband and the wife, or the father and the mother of the child. So what other things are to be considered while you're doing this testing?
You mean the cost? I didn't get your last line.
What other things are to be considered while doing the testing, apart from the cost, of course, and consent? What are the other factors?
Well, basically, those are the major factors. It's all about consent. Once the father is present, the location also matters. Like here in Nigeria, they are usually particular about the people involved being present. So if someone is like in US, UK, and all that, it may not be done until the person is back. So that's basically the major factor. So it's all about the presence, because it's a very sensitive matter. Nobody wants to get into the problem of, no, they switch the samples and all that. No. So the sample will be taken with both parties present. They will sign, and it will be sealed in their presence before it will be done.
So it's not possible. Yeah, so it's not possible for the father to go alone to get the testing done,
both parents need to consent. Very interesting.
All right, this is very nice. Thank you so much, Dr. Demo, for giving us all of this. From letting us tap from your wealth of knowledge this morning. You've been able to break down a lot of questions that I've had about DNA and paternity testing. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
You're welcome.
All right, have yourself a fantastic day. We just had a conversation on DNA and paternity testing with Dr. Demo Palang, and she is a medical doctor. She's been able to break down some myths, random facts, and also attested to some of the things that we know on DNA and paternity testing. And also, she said something that, well, to the best of her knowledge, she has actually never really witnessed baby swaps like, the Zimbabwean nurse that we talked about. That mixed up 5,000 children for laughs or for bants, like you had said. Well, I mean, it might not be very popular, but 1 or 2 cases would have been heard. I know we've taken stories like that in Nigeria as well. And also, we talked about the 1% genetic factor and genetic mutation that can also become problematic apart from sexual recklessness and infidelity that can, cause paternity fraud, which would lead to paternity testing and whatnot. Another fact is that you don't have to wait till you have the child before you do paternity testing. You can actually do it while pregnant.
While pregnant.
And it has a lot of risk factors, or some risk factors and complications that you might go through. But I mean, if you're in good hands, I don't think it should be a problem.
I'm sure some people are excited. Some men out there are like, yes, good.
It is not cheap.
Well, it's not cheap, so be careful.
It isn't cheap, and you might have complications.
Yeah.
And you can't do it without a consent between you and your partner. It's a whole lot.
Yeah, I think we should just, aim to have a very transparent society, where even if, you cheat as a woman or you cheat as a man, just come out, tell your partner, especially when now childbirth is involved. I think we should be more transparent in our society. Just come out and say, babe, this baby might not be yours, actually. Don't let me lie to you.
Really? It is not that easy. We both know that, some people might get killed with this kind of information. You just go and say, babe, so you see the baby bump that you've been spending
I am quite
a lot of money.
I hope you are.
I am very transparent.
Okay, all right, well done.
Yeah.